I admit I was there.
But I'm not a killer! All I did was find his body.
I hardly knew the guy to begin with.
I never even talked to that stuck-up British wannabe.
Hold it! Mr. Wright, you stated the following in your testimony. I hardly knew the guy to begin with.
That's right. I mean, why would I even...
But that doesn't sound right. If you hardly knew him, then why would you say that the victim was a stuck-up British wannabe? Well, Mr. Wright?
No, it wasn't me. I'm not a killer, I swear!
Mr. Wright, I will give you an opportunity to revise your testimony. How is it that you knew the victim was, as you put it, a British wannabe?
Yes, well... He was always walking around with a huge Union Jack on the back of his shirt.
Objection! Are you certain you saw the Union Jack?
Yeah, I'm sure. It was right there on his back.
Mrs. Faye, is there some point to this line of questioning?
Your Honor, please take another look at the crime scene photo. As you can see, there's absolutely nothing written on the victim's back.
Hey, wait a minute! He's wearing a leather jacket! The Union Jack was on the back of the t-shirt he was wearing.
I was under the impression that you accidentally came across the body. But if that was really the case, then you wouldn't know that, would you? You'd have no idea at all what he was wearing underneath that jacket. Mr. Wright, you've been lying to me!
Please forgive me!
Mia, you made our client cry.
Let him! That P on his chest doesn't stand for Phoenix anyway! I can't believe I trusted him! Mr. Wright's all wrong!
That was an impressive bit of cross-examination. Thank you for uncovering the defendant's lies for me. It's quite clear that this man did not simply stumble upon the scene of the crime.
Uh-oh. Did I go too far?
By the way, Mr. Wright, you seem to have a rather bad cold. Have you taken any medicine for it?
Yeah, I took some, but...
Was the medicine that you took an over-the-counter brand called Cold Killer X?
Yeah, that's right. It kills colds good. Hey, wait a second. How did you know I was a big fan of Cold Killer X?
Would you happen to have that medicine with you right now?
Well, actually, I seem to have lost it somewhere.
He lost it. Does this even have anything to do with the case?
Mr. Wright, shall I tell you where your cold medicine is right now?
Huh?
Your Honor, I'd like you to take a look at another photo from the crime scene.
What's this? In the victim's hand. It's Cold Killer X!
Objection! Yes, but even I've got a bottle of Cold Killer X in my apartment.
Objection! I'm sorry, but I'm afraid that argument won't work. There's no doubt as to who this bottle of Cold Killer X belonged to, especially since Mr. Wright's fingerprints are all over it.
What?
Sensing his murderous intent, Mr. Swallow must have picked up the bottle of medicine brought by Mr. Wright and hid it in his hand. His purpose in doing so can only have been to identify his killer as Phoenix Wright.
Order! Order in the court!
Your Honor, I'd like to present this photo and bottle as evidence.
Very well. The court will accept them into the record.
Also, the victim's wristwatch was broken.
Broken?
Yes, it ceased functioning when a large wave of electricity passed through it. Well, Mr. Wright, do you have some kind of explanation for all of this?
This is really bad.
Oh, my buttocks. My poor hemorrhoids.
The truth is, I went because he called me. He was in the pharmacology department, so we agreed to meet at 245 behind that building. We talked for a bit, and then around 3 o'clock we split up. Then later, when I went back, I found him lying there. I'd been taking Cold Killer X for the last 2 or 3 days, but I lost my bottle of it around lunchtime on the day of the accident.
Mr. Wright, that's completely different than the testimony you gave previously.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. I was afraid you wouldn't believe the truth.
You'll forgive me if I say I hardly find your current testimony any more credible.
Mrs. Faye, please begin your cross-examination.
Oh, please, Mr. Wright, don't tell any more lies.
The truth is, I went because he called me. He was in the pharmacology department, so we agreed to meet at 245 behind that
Hold
building.
it! Was it Mr. Swallow who indicated you should meet at 245?
Yeah, and we were both there right on time.
You said the victim was in the pharmacology lab, correct?
Yeah, he said he was studying how to manufacture and improve pharmaceuticals. Everyone called him the alchemist of IVU.
An alchemist? I see.
I gotta admit it was a little suspicious. He had a whole laboratory and everything. It was filled with chemicals and strange machines that run on high voltage electricity.
Oh, how fascinating. He sounds like he was quite an ambitious young man.
What should I do? Maybe I should ask him for some more details? I was wondering if you could tell us a bit more about the pharmacology department.
Well, okay, sure. I don't know all that much, though.
A little earlier in your testimony, you said something interesting. You said the department uses strange machines that run on high voltage electricity.
That's right, and they sure look dangerous. They use non-standard voltages, so there are high voltage cables everywhere.
High voltage cables.
Yeah, there were electrical poles set up all around the building. The high voltage cables run overhead around the roof.
Finally, I think we're getting somewhere.
We talked for a bit, and then around 3 o'clock we split up. Then later, when I went back, I found him lying there. I'd been taking cold killer Rex for the last 2 or 3 days.
It's rather unusual to catch a cold this time of the year, isn't it?
Yeah, I always get a little careless when the weather starts to warm up. I guess I shouldn't sleep with the window open this early in spring, huh?
I suppose common sense is not always common. So, did anyone else know that you were taking cold medicine?
Well, I always took one after meals, so I'm pretty sure all my friends knew about it. But I lost my bottle of it around lunchtime on the day of the accident.
Hold it! On the day of the incident, what did you do for lunch?
Huh? What does that have to do with anything?
You can never be too sure.
I always eat with Dolly, just the two of us. Dolly's homemade lunches are just the greatest. Her mini omelets are magically delicious.
Ouch! Why did you punch me in the jaw?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I just felt like hurting someone all of a sudden.
I think that's enough for now. So the defendant and the victim met at approximately the time of his death. And then the defendant returned to the scene for some unknown reason.
I'm not entirely convinced by his explanation about the medicine bottle either.
Let me be frank here, Mr. Wright. Your testimony cannot be trusted.
What do you mean?
I knew it was too much work for a little girl.
However, there is one mystery that still remains.
There is, Your Honor.
How the murder was carried out, of course. Just how was the victim electrocuted? I don't believe the murder weapon has been produced yet, correct?
Well, that is, you are correct, Your Honor.
So how exactly was Mr. Swallow killed? If I could somehow establish how it was done, maybe I could still come out of this mess smelling like a rose. Your Honor!
Yes, Miss Fairy?
I believe that if we were to piece together everything we've heard up until now, we should be able to solve the mystery of how Mr. Swallow died.
That would be most impressive.
Quite a brash statement coming from a rookie. But even a beginner like you must understand the basic rules of the court, yes? An attorney must be able to substantiate their arguments with evidence.
Of course I know that! Actually, I had totally forgotten about that.
Now then, Miss Fairy, let me see what you've got. Show me how you believe the victim was electrocuted.
Take that! As for the cause of death, I'd say this picture captures it quite well.
What? But there is nothing that even remotely resembles a murder weapon here. I'm afraid the defense is going to have to explain this in a bit more detail. Miss Faye, where exactly in this photo is the murder weapon?
Take that! Well, naturally, it's right here.
What is that?
A severed electrical cable, I believe, Your Honor. Remember the testimony we've heard. The machines that pharmacology students use in their experiments require high voltage. And because of that, there are special high voltage cables strung up everywhere.
So then, the high voltage cable!
Yes, the high voltage cable is the cause of death. That is the most likely explanation.
That certainly sounds plausible. Well, Mr. Payne, what do you have to say about this?
Well, I believe some praise is in order.
Don't toy with me, old man.
Now, the victim's cause of death may indeed have been a high-voltage cable. However, I want you to think about what that really implies. The only one who had the opportunity to use the cable as a murder weapon was the defendant.
That much is certainly true.
Yes, and that's not all. We have proof, irrefutable proof, that will establish that Mr. Wright was the murderer.
You do? Well, what is it?
His fingerprints.
Fingerprints? You mean that the defendant's fingerprints were on something beside the medicine bottle?
Let's take another look at the crime scene photo. As you can see, the victim is wearing a leather jacket, and as you may know, leather holds fingerprints quite well.
You mean?
Yes, it was quite clearly imprinted on the chest area of the victim's jacket, the palm print of the defendant's very own hand.
What?
I can only think of one way Mr. Wright could have left a print like that. Intent on murder. He squarely pushed the victim towards the severed electrical cable.
Order! That's enough! I think we can conclude that there is no reason to continue with this cross-examination.
Stick a fork in us. We're done.
Mr. Grossberg!
My hemorrhoids never lie. The show is over, Mia. I knew that boy was guilty the first time I saw him.
No! You're wrong! Mr. Wright is innocent!
No further evidence is required to convince me of this man's guilt.
Your Honor!
At this time, I am prepared to render a verdict in this case.
Hold it!
Do you have something further to add, Miss Fay?
Is this what you want, Mr. Wright? You still haven't told us the truth, the whole truth. If you don't say something now, the judge is going to hand down his verdict.
But I can't. I just can't say it. If I told you what really happened, then I'd be...
It's okay, Mr. Wright. I'm your attorney. You can trust me.
Miss Fay.
No matter what it is you have to say, I believe in you, and I'll represent you to the very end.
Objection! We've already established the defendant's guilt. There's no further need for him to say anything.
Wait a minute!
Mr. Wright.
I'll tell you what really happened.
Objection! But I've already told you, Mr. Wright, there's no need for further...
I did it. I admit it! I pushed him! It's my fault. My fault that Doug Swallow is dead!
Maybe I should ask him from... Maybe I should ask him for some more details. What should I do? Maybe I should ask him for... Your Honor! Mr. Wright? Mr. Wright? Whatever.
We talked for a bit, and then I started my recording too early and it cut off some of the audio. Yeah, embarrassing, right? Yeah, he was trying to become part of Umbrella Corporation. I don't know, something about zombies. It's crazy. How did you know I was a big fan of cold killer wannabe I hate you. And your couch. God damn your couch. We talked for a bit, and then around 3 o'clock we talked for a bit, and then around God. Then later I went back. I found him lying there. Remix. No, I'm just kidding. Everyone called him Edward, as I believe it was. Everyone called him... Wow.